looking forward to Kevin's demonstration of turning a trembler. And if you're ready to go, Kevin, why don't we take it away?
Well, take it away. So I'm going to ask you all to maybe think outside of a box today, because you definitely need to, because everything about this is contrary to what you've ever been taught, probably, unless you've done this stuff about turning. So, so basically what I'm going to do is we're going to feed a dowel rod. Yeah, let's go through the pictures. Oh, I've got some photos. Okay, so a long time ago, I did this. That's about 16 inches overall. That's probably 12 inches of the skinny stick. That's about as far as I could go. And go to the next slide a little bit. And that's a yardstick in there. So those longer spindles are over 50 inches. And so we go to the next one. Yeah, go to the next one. They get the idea, I think. So these are long and skinny. So how I'm accomplishing this is by feeding a dowel through the headstock. So on the jets are a little bit different. I think I could only get a 3/8 down through a jet. Todd tells me, and I pretty much believe him, we can get up to about a 5/8 dowel down through the headstock on a Powermatic, and probably on a one-way too, not a problem. That allows you a little bit more design consideration if you get to, doing just a finial on the top. Like, here we go, I'll put it down here. Yeah, you got it there? There we go. So you turn a finial like that to begin with. Or on this one, I'm going to join a different piece on the end of this, such as something like that. So I turn that down to an 1/8, and then they'll just drill a hole an 1/8, and then it just slides right on there. So that would be at the end of things, but the skinny piece going to something a little bit bigger, and this is a very thin-walled piece of cherry laurel burl. So, and it still feels heavy as heck when you start talking about these small diameters. So I'm going to shoot for about an 1/8 of an inch in diameter, which is about the size of that end there. And to go through the headstock, one of the issues with this is you got so much sticking out the back side of the headstock, this will start whipping around on you and it'll break it. So you have to have, yeah, there it is. There's one showing out the back. So you have to have a steady on the outboard side. So Todd made this for his one-way.
That's a Powermatic.
That's a Powermatic. Excuse me, Powermatic. He's got to correct me. So this basically sits right on top of the motor housing. That's what this curve's for. And then we've drilled a hole to fit, a 3/8 dowel through the head and have it lined up. That keeps that dampens the action of that dowel rod when it's spinning. So to turn these small diameters, you also need to be going pretty much flat out as fast as the lathe will go. Otherwise, you're not putting enough wood underneath the cutting edge to do too much. So you're talking about real high speeds, real thin diameters. So I'm going to let Todd set that on the motor for us, and I'm going to run this rascal all the way through the chuck and into that. And I'm only going to work a small section at a time. So that's kind of like doing bowls, thin-edged bowls. You don't want to get too crazy about making it thin all the way down at the bottom before you get the set. So you work it gradually from one end to the other. So there we go. Tighten this down in the chuck. So I've got a couple of inches out there. There we go. And start on 0.
Let them know that we got technical problems. That's why I'm here.
We got a little technical problem, and that's why Todd's over there, and he can't hear you. So anything you want to do with the picture or anything like that, if something needs to be adjusted, let me know. I'll relay it to Todd, and we'll make the corrections. So there we go. So I'm going to ramp that up to pretty much full speed.
2,000. Leave it at 2,000.
I'm going to back it off a little bit because could you hear that rattling? That was the dowel beating around inside the little hole we got there to support that on the outboard side. So I'll just make my bead a little bit smaller. And so this is kind of a cove, making a cove cut. Kind of echoing Jeff's mention about Todd being so nice to let us do this. This is the third time I've been over to his house to prepare for this demonstration. So, but I'm going to take that now. The second thing that's important about this is being able to support this. So, for optimum control on this little gouge, I want to choke up on it. And I'm going to do most of the work with just my right hand. And with my left hand, around the tool rest. So you need a tool rest that's skinny enough. Those big, fat, wide ones, you can't get around them very easy. So you need a kind of a skinny, thin tool rest here. Doesn't have to be long, but does have to be small enough that you can wrap your hand and get it into this position. And then I can support with my fingers of my left hand the cutting. Take it down a little bit. So that's probably an 1/8 or maybe, well, I'd say maybe even a little less than an 1/8. So some of you may have been out and looked up tremblers on the web and maybe caught Jean-Francois' contest. And I found a video they did in 2012, and the rules were, and it's a little bit different technique in this. We can talk about that a little later. But the rules were the onion, so this piece out here on the end, what he calls an onion, that finial diameter has to be a little bit, it's just shy of 2 inches in diameter. The little shallow pieces on the trembler, these skinny pieces, have to be 1.8 millimeters, and the overall length of the piece at 1,200 millimeters, which is a little about a shade under 4 feet, 48 inches. So you can tell, and I think the judges for this were Ellie and Jean-Francois and Jean-Francois' wife, and they came up with some incredible pieces. So if you go and Google tremblers and can find that competition in Belgium, you'll see some pretty amazing things. So this is maybe an introduction for everybody, and you really want to see where this can go to, go check that stuff out. So I'm starting to run out of wood before I get to the chuck, so I'll get it down to that. So right now I'm using a gouge to do this. You can use a skew, you can use Ellie's kind of skew, or Escalon teaches using a badan. So if you're pretty handy with the badan and stuff like that, man, this is right up your line. If you're not handy with the skew or a gouge, you're not comfortable, you use the tool you're most comfortable with. That's what I'd say, and that you have the most control with. You know, so pull out your favorite thing for doing finials and stuff. So now it's time to expand this out a little bit, and I hope I didn't go too small on that. That's pretty darn thin. That's probably in that 16th range. What do you think?
Yeah, it's pretty small. It's
Pretty small, huh? Yeah, let's just see. I think I don't think that would pass in Jean-Francois' competition. I've got that at about midway between a 16th and an 8th. So Todd's are more accurate.
Well, I just got batteries in mine, so 0.078
0.078
millimeters. Is
So it's
0.98 millimeters.
1.98. It's 1.80 is the requirement. So there you go. That's not even good enough to get in his competition, and that's as skinny as I ever want to turn one. But I don't think I'm going to Belgium to war with those guys at this point in time. So I'm just going to take it out of the chuck a little bit, and I'm just going to slide out another little piece. And away we go. And basically, you just repeat that over and over and over. And then you get to a certain point out here where your little onion part, or where I've got this tenon out here to put my piece on the end, that starts vibrating so bad you can't. You're afraid it's going to break, so you need to start to support that. And I've just worked this little piece down here, and we'll go on to another stage, if you will. My hat's not getting in the way, is it, Todd?
No. Oh, you're good.
Yeah, I'm trying not to lean over it too much. So, like I said, you could use this. I want Ellie's, the other one. Okay. So this is Ellie's, and I think I heard him calling this a skew. If you look at it, it's really kind of a badan. It's skinnier here, wider here. It's just sharpened different than any badan I've ever seen. He sharpened it kind of like a skew, but that's actually concave instead of convex, like most skews are hollow ground. And so this, to get to that edge, you have to be on the bevel. There's no way around it. So I believe that's why Ellie likes it that way. But, same thing, and you can slide that on. So you can use different tools to accomplish the same outcome. So here I'd using the corner to take it down to a diameter, and I'll flip it over, and then I'll use a planing cut here. So I did this demo for the Hunt County Club, and I think Ron was there, Ron Howe, and he was, after watching my demo, he said, I got to try that. That's a challenge. And he did one that was about 30 inches long, if I remember what he told me. Okay, so now you can look and see I'm getting quite a bit of vibration there, and I'm just holding that, keep controlling that with my fingers. And so about this time is when you need to get into the magic of this, and where you got to kind of get outside the box and start thinking. So to to do these small diameters and get long and skinny, you can't use the tailstock to push. It'll just bow it over and snap it off. So you got to, the way to think about this is I want to be able to pull on this. So just like when I'm gonna pull it out of here now, but when I pull on it, it's trying to like stretch the fiber of the wood this way. And so I've got to keep the demo moving. I'm gonna switch to the next stage and show you what I've decided to call the what is that from?
Did you want the string steady? Oh, you want
No.
a picture of that?
Yeah, I'll bring. You got this picture of this?
Yeah.
Let's show it.
Of the string steady?
Yeah. That's the flux capacitor for making this happen. And the other thing that works with the flux capacitor is down here is dental floss. So we call this string steady, and this goes in the tailstock, this part of it. So we're going to use the string as the steady to, you know, hold the piece where we want it to and keep it turning fairly true, or as true as we can. There may be some vibration in there, but within limits so it doesn't break. So this goes in the tailstock, and we may have a little technical time here where we move cameras around. Let's see which one I want. Should I go all the way or half? We're doing pretty good on time, aren't we? Where are we at?
Yeah, plenty of time.
Okay, so we'll go halfway. So you guys that were at Hunt County, you may recognize this piece of wood. I think we got to about here with one part of that demo. And
This is a bit thicker.
is it a bit thicker? Ooh, how about that? Maybe we'll go to the,
Yeah, I think that's not going to work.
that's not going to work. The humidity.
How much is going to stick out?
How much is going to stick out? Probably too much. Probably too much. I believe when we were talking about that, Ron had a good idea about using a baby bottle
You'll have that
and using the nipple on the baby bottle for the outboard.
stick there.
For the outboard. So you, whatever you've got that that you know, like a stand, you know, there's some stands for the for your air collection, your dust collection system that holds the hose for that, and you can maybe fit, you know, in mine at home, I've been able to fit a baby bottle inside that part that holds the hose on my little for dust collection. So, and would you move it to the outside? Oh, we're just going to let it beat in there a little bit. Okay. Yeah, that should be fine. It may rattle a little bit.
Inch or two up there. So.
We may rattle a little bit. Okay, so installing the flux capacitor. So I've kind of got it in there.
Zoom out here.
And it's got a little hole drilled in there so that can sit in, and then 4 screws. And basically I'm gonna get in that little notch I made there in that finial right there, and go around and come back. I don't take a full wrap on any part, just like just to bend it around, and then, you know, we'll go back down to that one. And maybe over to that one. Helps if you got dexterous fingers. Okay, so I've kind of got it trapped in there all different ways, and I'll kind of pretend like that's a cleat on the boat and go back and forth to lock it off. You can throw a couple of half hitches in there, but then you have to cut them off. So I just do some wraps and stuff just to get enough friction where that doesn't want to come loose on me. or wrap that.
That happened in practice.
Yeah, that little tail, if it wraps around that spindle, it can cause you some heartache. So make sure that sticks the other way. And I'll fire this lathe up and see where we're at on that, see if we've got him. Okay, so the onion there's turning pretty true. That's turning pretty true. And I guess Todd's going to be my steady out there with his thumb and his forefinger. Is that all right? 2200? That's not too bad. That's not too noisy. So that now, let me back up just a little second. And I'm just going to put a little bit of turn on the tailstock and give me a little pressure pulling away. The nice thing about making your piece here and your string steady in the tailstock out of wood is if that starts trying to pull out and getting a little bit loose, you can always just wet that down in one way or another, and it'll expand a little bit and it'll bite in the Morse taper better. But you want to make sure that that's good and tight in there. And then I'm just going to back off a little bit with the hand wheel, and we should be ready to go. Start cutting again.
Block out the seat. So get up to 22.
So 2200.
Okay.
So we're not quite flat out on this, but we're pretty close. Go down to there. So this would be a good time to sand, by the way, as you're, when you get long and skinny, it gets kind of hard to sand this. So sand as you go. I'm just going to skip sanding today, and we're just going to keep going with the demo because everybody knows how to sand, right? Okay. So now, if you'll notice on the quill here, oops, I knocked that camera out of the way. I had the quill extended. So with the little bit of pressure I have on here, when I open up that chuck, when I first started doing these, I could get it where that would just actually pull out a little bit. But I can use the tailstock to kind of pull me, and I'll give it a little help because that's tight back there, isn't it?
No, that's loose.
Oh, that's loose. There we go. It's starting to move now. And we'll take inch or inch and a half or so out of there. Lock it down. A little bit more tension. And I'll start down slow again because, so you can still see that's still nice and quiet in here. Nice and quiet right in there. It's not doing too much vibration, a little bit. And there'll come a point as you get way down and start making this thing long where that'll start vibrating. That's perfect. Thanks, Todd. Hope you don't mind me not talking all the time, because it just does, when I get that skinny, it does take a little bit of concentration. So I'm really controlling that tool with kind of my thumb here. And it's it's good fine motor control there to do that. So every so often you can put one of these onions, or I think, you know, I've just done a ball on this. I've done 3 beads. I've done bead cove bead, I think. And I've seen Ellie's had one, and it was wine bottles stacked up against each other. And then you go back skinny again. So you can do a lot of different designs on these little break parts, what they call the onion, or, you know, these mid stem pieces. So at this point, I think what I'm going to do is we're going to switch from this stem to one that's a little bit longer, because I want to try and get through and have a full length piece when we get done.
Well, what if you do one more and do a bead on the next?
Do one more and a bead on the next? Okay, I'll do that. That'll be good.
And then we can just put the strings back on.
And we can.
I think people like to see a bead turned on one of these things.
Okay. Okay. So
We got time.
we got time.
It's only 7:30.
It's only 7:30.
As long as you got time.
I got all the time of the, you know.
Yeah. Tomorrow's your day off, right? So
Tomorrow, well, I'm going to play golf at first thing in the morning. So about 6 a.m., I'll be swatting the golf ball a little bit. Oop.
Sorry.
Who was that?
That was me. I was putting this thing in to capture the end of it.
You know, it's probably short enough out there now. Well, yeah, they just leave it. That's fine.
Yeah, I might as well use it if it's here, right? So.
So this is a good time to sand the stem down if you want to. So normally, you know, that's about a 7 or 8 inch increment there. I do, you know, one maybe a little bit longer than that. But I'm going to go ahead and put the next bead right here. So
Just get shorter and shorter as you go down.
well, I can get shorter and shorter. That's a good idea.
And step down.
Yeah, I usually step up, but okay. But this will illustrate as we ramp up the speed. You can see how much more vibration there is on this little onion right here. So that's about 2,400 Rs right there. And a lot of that I'm dampening out with just those 2 fingers. This is the control part. Choke up here, and I'll get rid of the waste wood. My thumb is actually sitting in the gullet of that gouge. And I can feel the handle on my forearm of my right hand. Okay, so here it be.
I'm getting pretty familiar over here, Kevin.
Are we violating the COVID rules, little?
A little bit.
Just don't kiss, man. We'll be okay, all right? Two days ago, you wouldn't even stay in the same room with me.
What do you mean?
Okay.
I had to kick you out early.
Yeah, right. You did. All right. So there we go. Now, so I did just a little onion here, and the shape of that's not the greatest. And that's really getting, because I cut it down here too far to begin with. So I'm really kind of taking a risk by going back and doing that. You can see all this vibration out here on the first onion. But you can also see I can kind of move it around with my fingers and get it to run true. So the next step, we're going to go to a longer stem. This one. So how far out am I on this one so far? Probably. This one's already at just about 28 inches long. So yeah, there we go. So that's about 28 inches. Get it. Oh, you want to hold it to this camera?
Oops, that's the wrong one. Hit the wrong button. Sorry, 1 second.
Here, why don't you just put it down here on this one by the tool rest? Take my head out of there.
1 second.
There we go. All right, so there's kind of the finial, and that could be, a little tenon for the other piece. There's an onion. A little bit longer distant, there's an onion. And there's another one. And then I think if I go back to this interval, I'll still be right down to that line. Right down to that line. So that's where I'll do the end. Yes.
Kevin, this is Sue. Are the onions required for strength, or are they just for decoration?
You can do without them, but I think on the ridiculous competition that Jean-Francois had, they keep these distances fairly small, I noticed, because the onions are almost 2 inches in diameter, and it's a different technique. They're not feeding it through the headstock like this. So I think you can just make this long and skinny as you want without anything in there. If you want to give it a whirl, Sue, I know you probably got to have some fun doing this.
Well, I was going to try it with my 80 grit tool and see how long it would take.
No,
Yeah.
You don't want to use 80 grit. You want to go ahead and get out the skew and, or a gouge or a badan and gain those skills. Because, there's not too many people that have come as far as fast as you have in this. So anyway, so I'm going to take this one off. So since I didn't throw a couple of half inches in there and lock this in, I can just kind of spin this little piece of dental floss, waxed, and go ahead and take this off. If I can remember which way I was twisting it. Thank you. Okay, and I'll just go ahead and slide this back because we're going to need reset that camera later.
Kevin, this is Sue again. I couldn't quite see when you were wrapping actually wrapping the floss around the finial one time or just near it.
I'm going to redo that again with a new piece. That's going to be longer even.
Right. So when you do it this
I'll
time,
show you.
yeah, do it a little bit slower.
Yeah, I can do that. There we go. So this one's already 28 inches long. I'll tell you what, Todd, we can bring the camera. I can run this through the tailstock so we can get this down in the picture. And I'll do that. And so show them do that, and then we'll use the tailstock to slide everything back and back out till we get to where we've got to cut. All right. So flux capacitor, this is loose in the headstock and it's not in the chuck yet. And I kind of want to set that in the center of that. Okay, so all I've done to secure my dental thread in here is put a slip and then put the slip knot in over the screw. So that's anchored. Okay, and I kind of want to bend it around, and if I can get it in these little grooves in here, all the better. You know, it'll run nice and true there.
Kevin, can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Yeah, wrap it with a figure eight. It's a lot easier and it's a lot faster. Go from one screw to the opposite, come back around as in figure eight fashion, then go to the top screw and do the opposite on it. Wrap it around the screw around 5 times and you're finished. And it holds it right in the middle.
Figure eight. You mean like that? Get my fat hands out of the way.
Yeah.
And then over this one and back?
Yep.
Who's doing this demo anyway? No, but I'll take the suggestions like that. It doesn't, you know, usually when I get in here, I want this actually turning while I'm doing this so I can get it centered up real good. I'm just kind of guessing right now.
Yeah.
But I just like bending it like that. You know, the figure eight, since I haven't done it that way, let me go back to my way. Is that okay?
Okay.
Okay, is that fair?
That's fair.
You know, I want you to do what you're comfortable with, and if figure eight works perfect for you, and it's the same to all of you to try this thing, you know, try it around a little bit. He's got a pattern that he uses to get it set up, and it works. So, you know, that's.
So you are doing a loop around the steel.
I'm not doing a full wrap. I'm just bending it around the stem.
Yeah.
Just,
okay. So it's touching it, but it's not fully wrapped.
Yeah, it doesn't. I don't go completely around 360 degrees. I'm just going, you know, I'm just bending. It's maybe 60 degrees there or so. And you can you want to get it kind of from all sides. He said 5 times. I've done it with, you know, like 2. But, you know, the main thing is that you get it where you want to, and then it holds the piece steady. Technically, a string steady. Eh? Actually, I think I'll come back up here.
Kevin, when I was at your studio, you had like strings hanging from the ceiling and stuff. Is that part of this contraption sort of thing?
Strings from the ceiling at my studio? I think those might just be fishing rod from the old cane pole that's hanging up there from my father-in-law's cane pole. So I'm going to kind of slide this out now And we'll get, so there's one. That's a good long stretch there. Todd, are we long? Oop, don't do that.
We can go off a little bit, yeah.
Yeah, okay, probably have to.
Start out a little bit.
Pull the card out a little bit. That's good. So there's the part I want to work on. Let me run this back in. So I'm using, ooh, slide in there. You see, I felt that pressure when I was sitting there turning the hand wheel. It started to bow, and I stopped. If I'd have kept turning, I'd have snapped that thing. So I'm going to try and just push it a little bit further using the quill and my fingers to push it in a little bit further. And then I'm going to get the maximum out of this lathe as far as length. So now I can pull this guy out. I don't know. Is that enough?
So
Let's start right there. I still got a little more on this lathe.
move this. Just those two. Put your arm through there.
Put my arm through there. Thank you.
There, and then move this now.
Okay, we're going to do a little camera movement here. And, there. So I've got that locked in now. And I'm going to turn it real slow so you can kind of see without a string steady in there how much wobble there is in that. I mean, the one I did that was over 50 inches. By the time I got done, this spindle was going every which direction down the ways of that thing, just to keep it kind of running in the center. So I think we might need to put 2 string steadies in here to hold that like that.
Focus on that guy right now.
Okay.
See how it's pulling.
Yeah. And there's the slop. So if I speed it up, basically I want my steadies to take as much of that wobble out as I can. So I'll put a couple steadies in about here and here. So the string steadies are basically a little C-shaped deal like that. This is 2 pieces of Luan stuck together, glued together, and then put in about a half 7/8 inch base here. Cut me a little groove that's just right for those to fit down into. Glue that in nice and straight, and then on the bottom countersink a couple of magnets. So this is the string steady, and I'm going to slide those in here. And we wanted to put one about there. So maybe I'll understand your figure 8 idea here better. And this is also where to kind of get this optimized. I get it's just down, up, and then it's over. Better go on that side. Go on the side with the heads. There we go.
Show an image of it.
Yeah, see, now if I pull on the string, see how I can move the spindle around, and I can turn it on kind of slowly to begin with. And that way I can kind of get that where it's running pretty true like that. And then I'm going to come back around, and since that's holding it from that side, now I'm going to get it here. And that's all the string I got with that one. So I instead of just using 1 string, sometimes I use 2. And this one's short, so it's, He's a problem. He wants to come undone and get loose. It's all right. So now I've got the other piece of string over here. And now I've got him there. I suppose I could put a little glue on that. That's holding it pretty true. Now I'll go down, we'll put in another one down here a little closer to the headstock. So I've had up to 3 of these in. So, and with it turning, I can still, see, I can pull on him and get him where he's running pretty true.
Living dangerously.
Am I leaving dangerously?
Whoa.
What, reaching over the top of it and
No,
pushing
I
on it?
started rapping.
Oh, did it?
Yep.
Well, good thing you saw it because I
I've
didn't.
been watching. I had my hand here because of our practice the other day.
Okay, so I think that's our other steady there. Now we'll try and come up on the speed a little bit. So I got a little vibration out here I'm gonna live with.
Move that one down, couldn't you?
Yeah, so, you know, yeah, that's right. Even when it's running, I can slide this. And that, now I've got it about the same on either side. This one didn't run that true. And you can move it around a little bit. That's the helpful of the magnets. Well, let's fire it up and see how fast we can go without. If we can get that up about 2,000 Rs, I'll be happy.
Look up there, see all the snakes?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. These things will snake all over your lathe at some points. There's 2,200 Rs right there. So back to the repetitious part, cutting it down, making it skinny, and going, making it a little bit longer. Next step. One little piece at a time. Maximum control on the tool. Those are that, and getting a hang of messing around with string steadies, and y'all be on your way to making these things, you know, as long as you want. You know, if you look at this, some of the areas I'm a little fatter than others, but you're gonna have to resist the temptation of trying to go up there and straighten that out, because you'll probably snap it. So,
Kevin, a couple of questions.
and if it does break, it's not really super dangerous. I mean, it just stops spinning. That's all. It just doesn't go anywhere. It doesn't go flying around, and it's not like some of the rotten bowls and vessels I've tried to turn. Notice I said tried.
Kevin, are you using a 1/4-inch spindle gouge for the turning
You
there?
have to repeat that until now the lathe stopped. Now I can hear you. Say it again.
Are you using a 1/4-inch spindle gouge for the turning there? And is there a difference between cutting uphill and downhill when you're doing the spindle for the string?
Well, if you notice, I'm always cutting towards the headstock. Is that uphill or downhill? I mean, it's straight towards the headstock.
That'd be uphill.
Oh, that'd be uphill? Well, I think if you go the other way, you're going to get in trouble.
Kevin, there's another question on how do you exceed the bed length?
Say that again.
There was a question in the chat. Cliff wants to know how you exceed the bed length.
Exceed the bed length. That the whole piece is going through the headstock first, and then so I can get, you know, the extra distance of the headstock, and then we've got a steady on the other end. on the outboard side to keep the piece from broken. Yeah, see this in the picture there? We're coming out, we're out on the outboard side, and I have all that length there. And that's the steady that Todd and I came up with to sit on this Powermatic to vibration of the stock to begin with. And then that just works down further and further and further and further through. You can only get, it really doesn't exceed the bed length. I mean, we're only, I think a maximum on this is probably about 35, 36 inches. And then you can see, Todd, we just made this little, drill a hole. I think that's 5/8 hole, eh?
5/8, yeah.
Yeah, so that's the same size as the,
Pushing down to 3/8.
yeah, we made a bushing to cut it down to 3/8. Or if you start with 5/8 stock, it'll fit right down in there. And then he put this incredible magnet here on there, and a couple of bars. So that sits up on the top of the motor housing, and that gives us a way to go all the way through the headstock and come out the other side and not be snapping this, which is a fairly long, skinny piece of wood to begin with. So now it gets a little, now you start getting into a little tricky in the movement, because I've got to pull, first I want to make sure that my chuck is nice and loose. And I want to help it, and I don't have but two hands, so this has always been kind of a coordinated thing for me. I'm going to use the hand wheel to pull, and I'm kind of pulling with my fingers here at the chuck a little bit at the same time, and I'm going to crank that out. That'll give me about an inch and a half. Okay, now you can see I can adjust these, get that back in line. That one popped on its own. Who knows where we are with that? Lock in the chuck. So I've got that thing tight in the jaws again. And let's cut the speed down at first. Yeah, I'm gonna rotate that. I had a little pull on it to begin with, Todd, but we'll see. We'll do a little more. Didn't hurt. Oh yeah. See, that one's nice and running smooth. Got a little vibration there, but not killing me.
Nice.
Right back up to about 2,000 RPM.
Oh, do you want to try the whole way? Up to 3,000? It's up to you. You can do it now. We got nothing else here.
What happens at 88 miles an hour? Do we just take off into time with the flux capacitor here? Yeah. There's 80. There's 28. We'll try 28. He says it's good for 3,000, but I'm going to stop at 28. See, and you really just need the speed to generate enough wood passing underneath the edge to cut good.
You know, we could move the headstock a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
Give you a little bit more. This headstock will probably get another 3-4 inches.
Well, I think I got another inch or two out here too. Okay, so we're going to try and move it one more time here. Hopefully we'll get all the way through this. And then I want to talk a little bit about the other system of doing these. And you start with a really kind of like a 12-quarter stock and the 48 inches long. So that takes a pretty good size lathe to do that. And I think in that competition, they're sitting there all on one way. So to get that length, and probably without boards. I mean, with extensions. I'm going to slide that out. It's just coming out by itself. Easy, just slide the tailstock away. I've got about 3 inches of the tailstock hanging off the end of the lathe, and I can still lock it down. And I think we should still be good on that. And where's my little line? Yeah, I got a little bit more to go. We'll do that. And
I'll try moving the headstock.
yeah, you want to? Let me undo that.
Here, we might as well.
Yeah, why not? We say, gang, we want to try and move the headstock. There.
Good enough.
Yeah, I can see my pencil line now. That'd be good. With what I've got there, we got it.
More? Or
No.
You good there?
Well, let's go a little bit hair more. All right, that's it. That's stretch. Now that's a Powermatic stretched out as far as you ever want to stretch one.
It's only an inch over.
And now, very carefully, I want to push that back in because that's way too much wood sticking out of that chuck right now. So I'm kind of trying to push it in with my left hand while I'm turning the hand wheel with my right and sliding it through the, yep, heading towards the headstock. And okay, that should be enough. And I'm going to give it a little tug. I'll get my tension down the stem. So this is why you need to sand in between. You see how that's, things are wobbling around in there each time I change the chuck, and I'm getting a slightly different center. So that's why you see these little lines and inconsistencies in here. And that's, I just don't know quite exactly how to figure out how to get rid of those other than just as I'm doing the piece, I'm sanding as I go. All right, let's see. Let's just start down slow again, low and slow. I told you that one liked to get sloppy loose. Question is which one is it? All right. Let's see what we got. Back up here around 2200. So it's kind of repetitious, this part of it. The string steadies are kind of the key to being able to work with this. So really the whole, the real key thing technique-wise is to choke up on the tool, learn how to grip around and have a tool rest that you can get around, and use your thumb for extra control. These two fingers are supporting that little spindle, and cut it right down like that. Okay, I'm going to stop it there. We're going to pull it out one time, do another onion down here on the bottom. I'll cut a little tenon and leave a little piece of wood there to, I'm not going to completely part it off, but I'll get it to where, we'll be able to get it off, and where it can fit into a base. So, loosen the chuck. give it a little support and use the hand wheel to slide that puppy out. I think I'll stop right there. Yeah. My line isn't so clear. A little tension on the hand wheel. Oops.
Zoomed a little too much. There we go. Okay.
Go for a double, hey? Okay, so right in here now, I'm just gonna cut me a tenon that will fit in another bass. So I'll have to guess, and you know, let's say we'll make that tenon like maybe a quarter. Say, so maybe a 1/4 inch in diameter. You don't have a little parting tool, do you? Because I think I forgot mine. Perfect. Gracias. It's a nice thing about having it at somebody else's shop. If you forget something, they got something. That's less than a quarter. Close enough. We're gonna call that good enough. Since I went too far, you'll have to adjust a little bit.
3/16.
3/16? 3/16. That may be where it's at now. No, it's a little fatter than that. That's just a hair over 3/16.
Yeah. Just a hair over.
Just a hair over. So take a hair off.
Yeah, we could just sand it. Just drilled it by the house. It'd be pretty good to leave it there.
And then this is where we're going to part. Or break. Okay, she's done. So when I was looking at the contest that Jean-Francois put in, 1,200 millimeters in length, that's a little under 48 inches. The onions are almost 2 inches, and 1.8 millimeters in the stem, which is a 16th. So quite a challenge if you get, and actually those things are so fragile that they use a glass tube, but at this point, they slide the glass tube over the whole piece before they take it out. And the glass tube is just big enough for those onions to slide in. And then they stand it up in a glass tube, because if they tried to move it without the support of the glass tube around it, they break. So really quite a unbelievable amount of skill involved in being able to do that. But hopefully this demo would get you started, get you interested. I understand that this has absolutely no utility value, so therefore it enters the realm of art. You know, if you can't use it for something and it looks kind of cool, I guess it's art.
Kevin, what gouge were you using?
It's a, what'd you call it? 1/4 inch? Yeah, it's just a 1/4 inch gouge, and you can use any size you want, you know. There's probably, you know, some of the skew guys would probably go after this with their 1.5 inches and do it with it. I'm not that confident with a skew. I like my little gouge, or I really like this little Ellie's little skewed up badan, I guess I'll call that.
Yeah, skewed up.
That's a skewed up badan, essentially. So I like that tool a lot for this. A lot of people, I suppose, if you're, you know, if you're one of those skew guys and you got one of those little sets of skews like that, you can probably use that, because the diameter is nice and small. I wouldn't try and use that on anything very big. I mean, that's a 6 millimeter 1/4 inch is what they call that, HSS. I have this big old fat parting tool, and I've used it.
Hey, Kevin, I got a question.
I got an answer.
Well, are any of the finishes out there, would they help strengthen the narrow finials like this?
Any of the finishes?
Yeah, would any of the particular finishes benefit to help limit breakage?
You know,
mean
maybe.
Like a hardener? Like putting on a hardener?
Yeah,
You mean like spraying it with lacquer or something?
yeah, I'm just wondering if oils versus finishes, like
You know what? I've never
lacquers or
finished one,
dripping.
Jeff. I mean, they're crazy enough without having to go through all that stuff. You know, I barely sand them. Usually when I'm sanding them, I hit them with about 180 and get them where, you know, where these little bumps and things are here out of them. And that's about as far as I've gone with it. You know, I guess if I was trying to make a real astounding gallery piece and wanted to make it shine in every way, you might take that on. But, you know, I kind of leave that up to the individual artist, you know, what they want to do as far as finish. Part of this thing, though, I guarantee you, with humidity, this thing's going to be moving around on its own. So,
Hey, Kevin?
Yes, sir.
This is Michael. What type of wood do you recommend using?
Well, I've used several different kinds of wood. This, I believe, is a, I think that's a birch dowel. Okay, so in my way of thinking about it from wood point of view, I definitely want to go with diffuse porous woods, maple, birch, you know, cherry, walnut, not oak. You know, ring porous woods, oak, ash, they're not going to be as good with this. But I have used, let me pull this one out, because you can probably see, this is Longleaf Pine, and you can see the dark bands. Do I just hold it steady and you can zoom in on that? Okay, so the dark bands in there are the summer wood vessels, which are very, very dense and very, very strong. The lighter bands are the spring wood vessels, or tracheids, and not in pine are not vessels. But anyway, the spring wood there is very, very soft. But between them, they make something that's pretty durable, pretty strong. So And like I said, this one ended up being a little shorter because guess what? You know, I was learning. You know, whoop, 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 whoop. Good catch, Kev. So this one, you know, see, it didn't make it but about 2 steps. That was maybe 18 inches there. And who knows? I don't remember if I broke it when I was turning it or if I just stepped on it, being the clumsy oaf that I am sometimes. So this one, we ended up at 32 and 3/4. Yeah, just 32 and 3/4 inches on that one. So that's a pretty good long skinny spindle, and he varies from about 3/16 down to a little less than an 1/8. But so on, moving on to the Jean-Francois technique and the way that what these guys are doing over in Europe in this contest, instead of a little bitty, they got them a big one. They got a big flux capacitor like this. So I made this one because I'm anticipating giving this a shot. You know, at least trying to see, you know, if I can make a 2-inch onion. That's just about a 2-inch hole because I drilled it and then I hollowed it out, and I made my Morse taper for my one way, and so the onion will fit in there, and I can string steady it off and start working it out. And those, you actually use a steady, a big regular old one-way steady, or you know, whatever kind of wheel steady you got, but you use it between the chuck and on the big meaty part, you know, because you don't have anything going through the headstock on that. You got to get the whole 48 going down the lathe bed. So when you start, you got 48 inches of, you know, 3-inch diameter material, and that'll flop around in with you if you don't have a regular steady in on that. And then they start, as they go, you know, same technique, except for you're making bigger onions, and you're going, so their onion diameter is a little bit less than 2 inches, and we're looking at their 1.8 millimeters, which is, you know, my conversion said that's a 1/16 of an inch, and my eyes bugged out of my head. I thought it was maybe I thought it was maybe an 1/8 or a little bit less than that, but it's way down there. So that's skinny, 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 very, very fragile, and a complete challenge as a turner to try and gain those skills. Do I get in the frame a little bit better here? Any more questions?
Good job, Kevin. Say, I got one comment is for the library. If anybody else, I didn't make it over to Wood World yet, so I'm going to do it tomorrow. If anybody wants to check anything out, just send me email what you want, and I'll be picking it up.
Yeah, I think I might need some stuff. Yes.
Hey, Kevin, at the beginning, you had a little tenon on the end, and you were going to put like a little piece of burl on it.
Yeah.
Something this long and delicate, how do you judge what kind of weight it's going to bear? Is it just trial and error?
I'm just guessing, you know. It may hold it, it may not, and you kind of set it in there, and let me see if I can find that again. Where'd that little devil go? No, the one with the tenon that I started with.
Yeah. Do you provide a list of curse words when you get about 3/4 of the way through and it breaks?
You can make up your own, whatever suits you when it comes to curse words and losing it when you break one. But you know what? I just laugh anymore because I know it's sometimes it's not even my fault, especially with that Longleaf Pine. You get to a section in there where there's no summerwood vessel, and you're all in springwood, and it'll just collapse.
Yeah, I was going to say, you know, you just hit one little fissure and it's gone.
So the hardwoods like birch, and those are going to be your better bets, and that are diffuse pores. So if you can see the little ring dots in the wood like you can on oak, you know, that's probably not the wood to use. You know, ash is the same way. And I couldn't even do the first little goblet I had, this one, and I think I did this probably, you know, close to 8 or 10 years ago. Where are we? You going to go down here?
Yeah.
This guy, he's 16 inches over long. See, I had to put a little piece of agate on that because I didn't have enough mass down here on the bottom to hold up that cup. And that's a piece of madrone burl. So, you know, but that, you know, you started, kind of give you an idea of where I started with this. You know, here's a little, you know, everybody wants to do goblets at some point when you're first learning. Sue Boyle, you do a goblet, you know, you're probably second or third piece you ever did?
Oh,
You still on
yeah.
there, Sue? Huh?
13, yeah, with a 13-inch stem. Yeah.
Yeah, with a 13-inch stem. But it's, you know, not real skinny stem, I bet you.
About 1/8 of an inch, and I'll never do it again.
Oh, please. So then, you know, I was just thinking about how to get rid of a bunch of wood, and I started making these little cups like this, and I was just buying dowel. So these things, this is like, you know, a dowel, but I don't think that looks very good. And I didn't make it, you know, it came from some machine somewhere, but it's, you know, and it's just not, you know, hey, let's show a little pride and make the whole darn piece instead of, you know, wimping out with a little skinny dowel. So that's when I, you know, started going this way, you know, and trying to do these, which I like a lot better. I mean, I think that's a little more. But yeah, when they get long, see how that one's, it just trembles. Somebody walks by that thing, it's going to move.
You're making me so nervous. I need oxygen. I've been holding my breath through this whole demonstration.
You're afraid I'm going to break it?
Oh my God.
So there are some practical things about this, you know, if you're going to be a conductor. You know, come on, orchestra, let's play. So you could make, you know, somebody a conductor, a band leader, you know, you could make them a little, whatever they call that. Baton.
Yeah. Hey, Kevin.
Yes, sir.
Have you ever experimented with a live center chuck in the tailstock? I've actually got one of those. I make walking sticks. So I do long, kind of spindly things. And I actually have a chuck that fits in the tailstock. That's a chuck, but it's a live center. It's got bearings in it between the Morse taper and the chuck part. So it's
you know, it sounds like that'd work great.
All right.
Yeah, you know, I don't know how much more, you know, kind of one of these things that throw you off on that is when you start up this lathe, that there's some torsion in there. You know, this is going to start turning before this out here starts turning.
Yeah.
And the easier, you know, with just a wax piece of thread out there, I don't have much friction to overcome.
Yeah, that's a good point.
And all that may be a little bit more resistance and
a
little more torsion in that piece. I don't know. You know what? I'm no engineer. I'm just a, you know, old broken down tree man that turns wood once in a while.
It seems like a lot of this is just you go until something breaks and then you know the limits. All right.
Do I have a micro bevel on that gouge, John Solberg? John, no, it's pretty much just a straight, maybe a little bit of a micro bevel. Here, I'll put it down here on the tool rest. You can judge for yourself. Todd's gonna.
Put your hand under it.
Thank you, Kevin.
Yes. So would you say that's a little, you know, for the first, it's a little bit of a micro bevel. There's probably about, I don't know, what's that, about 3/8 right there that I have one for a bevel, and then there's another 3/16 behind that. So yeah, I'd say that's got a little bit of a micro bevel. You don't need a long bevel when you're turning something that little. I mean, you're using such a teeny little piece of the edge anyway, and, you know. So, but I do like something like that, or the Ellie's tool where it's curved, you know, convex instead of a concave tool. And I've turned it with my skew. I've done these with my skew. Can do it. I mean, it's whatever you like, whatever you can get down in here, choke up on, get your hand wrapped around that tool, get maximum control with your thumb and your finger supporting the piece and your thumb working that, you know, that's where you want to be. You want maximum control. And, you know, and I believe this is pretty close to what Ellie taught us at SWAT last year. So, Brian Evans, he's another one, same thing. You watch him, he'll choke way up on that, and he'll get in there with, and get his fingers around there, and he can control. And he's maybe the best spindle turner we got. It's best for my nickel. So any more questions? Where we at?
Kevin, thanks for doing this for us. I appreciate it.
Ron, I have a never-ending admiration for you, because you went through one of these dummies in one of these dummy demos in Hunt County and back in February. And I know how many of these have you done now? Just the one, or?
There's the tip of it, and it stretches out, and it stretches, and it'll wiggle. And with the base, 47 inches.
47 inches with the base. So,
First try.
like I said, at this point, it's no longer something with any kind of utility. It's just artwork,
I have some friends in Oklahoma that want it for a earthquake detector.
Earthquake detector. Yeah, that's good. That's good. We'll have to send them out to L.A.
Oh, yeah. Sue Boyle's watching. Sue Boyle can do one this weekend.
Sue Boyle can do this standing on her head.
Well, Kevin, we definitely appreciate your demo. Appreciate you putting this together for us and showing us this fun technique.
My thanks goes to Todd for letting us use this wonderful shop he's got, and his investment in all this great equipment that we're using. I mean, there's 1, 2, 3, 4 cameras that we got, and all this other supporting hardware is quite impressive. I don't know, it's not just hundreds of dollars, it's probably thousands invested in being able to do this. So, and I hope y'all will support Todd as he keeps trying to grow his business and sell tools and do demos. He's a great ambassador for us and our club, and I'm just proud that he let us do it here.
Thank you. And as a matter of fact, Todd, what is your business? Why don't you go ahead and put in a shameless plug, because I think we definitely deserve for you to have a second here to plug your business.
Toolstore.com.
There it is. There, it's a T-shirt. Can you get that in the picture? Kind of stand back a little bit and get
everybody see this? woodturningtoolstore.com.
Nah, you're not going to break my trembler. I'll grab it. Boy, we're fast.
So he has a YouTube channel.
Yep. Between his educational information and some of the tools and offerings he has, Todd has some great stuff.
Yeah, and the customer service from his company is excellent.
If not, we know where to find him.
Exactly.
Well, he's got a nice newsletter that goes out every month too, and he's like I said, he's a great ambassador for our club to have Todd, taking this on and trying to, grow a business in this market right now. Very difficult, and I'm happy to support him any way I can.